All right. Well, good morning and welcome to the Free Friday coaching call. This call happens the first and third Fridays of each month. For those of you that may be joining in on the recording or maybe joining us for the first time, this call's been going on for I don't know how many years now, many years, 5, 6 plus years. And the purpose of it is around skill set and mindset for real estate agents. We have over 900 people that have signed up to be on the mailing list to make sure they get the recording and notified when the calls happen. I've got texts coming in about, I'm not able to make it this morning. So we're moving forward because we've got an incredible guest that I'm excited to have here today and to be able to interview. And so I'll just start off by saying that I would invite you to grab something to write on and something to write with because the dullest pencil is better than the sharpest mind, someone said. I don't know. Who knows whoever says anything, actually the original person to say something because everybody rips everybody's stuff off. So it's like you hear it for the first time and you think I
Right.
said
You're going to get some of that today.
like I didn't make it up.
Yeah.
Not mine. I got it somewhere. I don't even know where it came from. So anyhow, good morning, Ela. Welcome to the call today.
Good
So
morning.
good morning. So as we jump into today's conversation, the reason why I'm really excited to have it is that just to back up and provide some context, I have some friends that were here visiting over the last couple of days, and my girlfriend's husband is 67 and he just retired. And we were having this conversation about what are you going to leave behind in 2026 and what are you going to take into 2027. And one of the things that he was going to leave behind was the ego that he had identified with his position in his career because he had realized that it had defined who he was as a person. And now that he's not in that career, he's like, who am I? What is my value? What is my worth? Right. So, chief information officer in tech for, a lifetime. Right. And did really well in his career and is like, who am I now? Right. And where is the significance? And so, I think that, in the industry of real estate, people get into the business. And in my experience, everybody gets into the industry of real estate for one commonality underneath it all, which is they want to own their life and their future and be able to create it and design it the way that they want. And the industry can eat you alive and suck you dry if you allow it to, and become your identity. And then there's also a way to navigate it very differently. And so today I'm super excited to have the guest that we have because I have witnessed firsthand that she's created a different experience in the industry for herself and has had definitely her own journey. For those of you that might not know who she is, she's got over 22 years in the industry as an agent. She's been coaching for over 10 years. She's an agent that has produced and is a producing agent and is through her leadership really impacted people, whether that's the end line consumers that have had the opportunity to work with her or people that have, raised their hand and said, okay, help take me to the next level and be better. And she's somebody that has a servant's heart in my experience. She's here 100% in the spirit of contribution today for people that are showing up to learn. And so without further ado, I want to welcome Jacqui to the call this morning. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Casey. I'm so blessed to be here. I'm just so excited. And every time I'm around you, you're just so positive and full of energy. And I just love sucking some of that up too. So
Yeah.
thanks for having me here.
Yeah.
I actually met Rick back in 2009 when I was a leader at a different company, and his impact on me and his speaking is you're going to see some of that today probably because he just really had a huge impact on my life and on others. And so even today in my coaching, I use his apology script. Who has the apology script? The Rick Jiha apology script? Yes, that's right. So, when those agents have never called their database, I'm like, let me tell you what to do, right? And so, like you said, rip off and duplicate. I always like to give credit where credit is due. So, but thank you for trusting me with a small piece of his legacy by being here. It's just an honor to be here. So, I wanted to say that first. Um, Yes, I'm currently a coach for 10 years, national speaker, and today I'm going to share the 5 steps or what I call the 5 phases to your unreal life. And I think a lot of times, like Casey said, as agents, we push this unreal life off into the future of like when we're going to retire or after we get this done or this done or this done or we fix this or build this or do this, then we'll be able to be who we were meant to be, right? And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, um, the live unreal, unreal by definition to me and to what I have learned is it's something so amazing that it's almost unbelievable. So unreal is something so amazing that it's almost unbelievable. And today we're going to talk about your unreal life, a life so amazing that it's almost unbelievable. And so there's 5 phases to that. And during that, I'm just going to be transparent. I'm going to share some of my life journey. I'm going to be very vulnerable and probably share things that I've not shared in front of an audience before. And I think that it's super important to see where people come from because it helps others relate to where they came from and what they're experiencing. And we do have a lot of pre programming, whether it's one of my therapists called it baby trauma or major trauma, right? And sometimes we disregard some baby trauma, and I will talk a little bit about that today and how that's impacted me through my life. So we're going to get started with the Unreal Life formula. And what I want you to do on your paper, I didn't make any kind of fancy PowerPoint or anything like that. But what you're going to do on your paper is there's going to be 5 sections. And I don't know if you can see that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're going to start with box number 1 at the bottom, box number 2 just above it. Box 3 is going to be towards the middle. Box 4 towards the top, and box 5 will be all the way at the top, and that'll say Unreal Life. Okay, so again, there's 5 boxes, 1 at the bottom, 2, 3 is right in the middle, 4 and 5. And you're going to use the whole sheet of paper. And during each section that we go through, you're going to have your own notes of your personal experiences, what comes to mind, and what comes to your heart as you go through these. So everyone go ahead and number those out. I'll give you a few moments to do that. And then we'll get started. All right. So I'm going to start off with just history, right? So we're going to go back to 1988. Who was a child of the 80s? Totally, totally, right? In 1988, I was 11 years old. And I grew up in a upper middle class neighborhood. My parents built a Ryan home in 1978, and that's where I lived. And my parents were hippies from the 70s, and they went to Woodstock together and all of those kind of things. But what that did for my household growing up as a young child was we were in a middle class, upper middle class neighborhood, and my father worked at a grocery store at night and he would tag groceries. Now, back then, they didn't have the barcodes, the scan codes. So you used to have the sticker gun. Do you remember that? And we used to put those stinking stickers all over the house. But that was my childhood. And, you know, that led to some alcoholism. My dad actually did pass away from alcoholism when he was 61. But as a child, that meant he was abusive to my mom. He was abusive physically, verbally, never really abused us children, but it was just, her. So she was emotionally weak. She was obese. She would eat her feelings. Like, I'm not even, trying to exaggerate. It was just one of those things where I had, a father that had an addiction problem, had an amazing heart, and a mom who was emotionally weak. And I was one of 4 children. So I don't want you to imagine being in a house with 4 of us in a 2-bedroom Ryan home split level, right? So it was pretty tight in there. We also had many dogs and many cats, and to just say the least, it was not the cleanest home. Okay, Children's Services was at our house a few times. People would tape money to our door. We were on food stamps, but we were in this upper middle class neighborhood. The house was only 5 years old. So it was a very interesting struggle as a child because you don't really notice there's a hierarchy of money until you're in about 6th grade, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, when all your friends get all these new school clothes and you get, one outfit, right? And so that's where it's like sometimes growing up, we have things that is small trauma, but those things stay with us. And it causes us to do things in our behavior that maybe helped us forward. Because honestly, I'm grateful for a lot of that because it would not have internally motivated me the way that it did. My senior year, I had 4 jobs. I worked at a pet store, a pizza shop, a tanning salon, and Subway. I was a sandwich artist. Anybody else was a sandwich artist? Okay. So I did all of those things, and I was counting the days till I could move out of my home and actually start my life. And so one of the blessings of living in that upper middle class area is I was exposed to what I thought was normal. And I always felt that I never belonged. I always felt like I never belonged there. I never fit in. Um, and I was always trying to, we talk about keeping up with the Joneses, right? I knew that I was light years away from the Joneses, and I just didn't know what I was going to do with myself. But that was living the life that I grew up in was not going to be it. So, um, I was very proud to say that I purchased my first home at age 20. I got married at 21. I had my first child, Abby, when I was 25. I had my son, Drew, when I was 28. And during my second pregnancy, you're not supposed to like cut your hair or do anything major in life. And that's when I decided to get my real estate license because why who wouldn't want to do that? Just go from being a preschool teacher and a stay-at-home mom. I did home child care and I always thought I would care for other people. And then I became a businesswoman. And I just thought, I'm going to go do this because this could be something I could do with extra time. I could just help a top agent, with her business to get me out of the house. And what I realized was that was actually a gateway to freedom for me. It was a gateway for me to be able to afford the life that I wanted to provide for my children. And so, one of the things I always like to start with is just giving gratitude for the blessing that we have all stumbled upon real estate at some point. Like, unless your parents were a broker, most of us did not choose this as our first career. My first career, I paid for myself to go to community college, and I have a 2-year degree in early childhood education. And I had a home child care daycare in my house, and I stayed home with my kids. Like, that's what I did before real estate. And what real estate has transformed my life into has been nothing short of unbelievable. And so I always like to just give gratitude for the industry. And what that did was it introduced me to money. And honestly, that is the first box at the bottom. So I'm going to fill in money. And I want you to write the word money right at the bottom of your sheet in that first box. Okay. So some of the words that you want to write in that money box are my needs and my wants. My needs and my wants. And most of us as real estate agents, we make enough money to pay the bills and then we make a little bit extra, right? It's our income. It's the foundation for everything else. And let's face it, we all got into the business to make money, right? There's no shame around that. The interesting fact is about 90% of real estate agents get out of the business in the first 2 years because it's difficult, right? But once we figure it out, we understand that this is a gateway to what I call freedom or being able to say yes. And we'll get to that point. But some of us make money for validation. Some of us want money to be seen, but we can't have it be our only focus. And what I love about real estate is once we see that making money in this industry is possible, then we look at the how. And that's part number 2, which is going to be transactions. So I want you to go ahead and number 2, just write transactions under box 2. And so transactions are sales. And if you're a leader, by the way, it may be transactions are how many agents, right? Whether you're a team leader or a broker. I coach a lot of leaders as well. They're looking at not just sales, but they're looking at the number of agents that they bring on to their company. Okay. But what you need is a business plan, right? So business plan would fall under transactions. We, as agents, twice a year, get out our business plan. Hopefully you have it in front of you weekly, but we revise that every January and we revise it every, end of June to make sure that we're on track for our annual goals. So this helps us figure out, of course, if any of you have taken any coaching classes, it's how many calls do I need to make to how many appointments, to how many appointments set, to my conversion, to listings taken, to pendings, to close, right? And you have to learn all your ratios and figure out, okay, I need to go on 15 appointments in order for me to close 2, right? Or whatever the numbers are. But that is literally that transactions piece because we dissect how we're going to make that income. And so, interesting story is when I first transitioned into real estate. I mean, I don't think anyone in my family thought I would be a businesswoman either. And so my older brother used to call it realtor land. He's like, "So how's realtor land, today?" And I'm like, "Oh my goodness." And I don't know if any of you have experienced that where you've gotten into this industry and other people have doubted you. And this is the part where when I realized I could make great money in real estate and this is how I could do it, and I surrounded myself with people that believed in me, that's when I realized I had no plan B. And so when we talk about the agents that last in the business or the agents that become successful in the business, other speakers have referred to it as burning the boats or no plan B or all in. That's what I was at. I was in an all in, burn the boat state because I wanted to make sure I proved everyone wrong that I could do this. And so what that afforded was we would do transactions, we would get paid. We would do transactions and we would get paid. And for many of us early on our career, this was the circle that we would stay on. We would just increase our transaction count 5 to 10% each year on our business plan. We would do that, and there we are, right? And some of us on this call might be in that cycle right now, and that's okay. We're going to show you what the other phases are so we can move you through that towards more of an unreal life. So that brings us to the next rung on the ladder or the next section, and I'm going to call that options. Okay, so we're going to move up to this third section and call it options. And we're going to spend a few more minutes in rung number 3 and number 4 because those are the most important. But options, and for me, I just put in parentheses next to options, freedom. This is your vision board. This is the places, the things, the experiences, the investments. These are all the things that will make my life great, right? And every January, we set our goals and we look at what options we want for the next year. And we figure out, well, how much extra money would I need to redo the kitchen, right? So if we're doing a kitchen remodel and we want to make an extra $50,000 or whatever it's going to cost, we figure that into our goals. We figure that out for our transaction count, and that will lead us to the money that we need. So for so long, we typically live our lives for these options, the things that we want to say yes to that maybe in a previous life we had to say no to because maybe we couldn't afford them, right? This is the one that's the hardest one to break through to get to the next level because now we can say yes to many things. We can say yes to travel and just our cars, our homes, our experiences, taking my daughter on a vacation, like all of these things. And I remember early on, back in like 2009, 2010, my daughter wanted to have her birthday at Chuck E. Cheese. And I got to say yes to having a birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese, right? And it's one of those things where you realize that you actually have that freedom to say yes. So in this phase of reflection, it's we either become a better person during this phase or we become a worse person. So I want you to write down better or worse. Most successful people were stuck in level 3. And I will admit, I was stuck in level 3 from probably 2010 to about 2022. A solid 12 years, I was in level 3 of this successful way to my unreal life. And just like Casey talked about, the gentleman that she had over the weekend was in level 3 until they looked and thought, oh, maybe I should go to level 4, right? He's ready. He's like inviting himself to do that. But level 3, I stayed there because I wanted to protect my children from the pain of not being able to afford to do something. And in my mind, I was doing it all for them, right? I was staying up till 2 a.m. doing paperwork, getting up at 6 a.m., driving them to school, doing all of the things that I needed to do for my business, but I wasn't actually spending time with them. And I lost them and time with them in the process, right? My mom was taking care of them. And by the way, in 2010, I met my wonderful husband, Ryan. He's amazing. We got married in 2010. And we were there, even though our marriage is happy, we were both stuck in the options, transactions, more money, more options, more transactions, more money, more options, more transactions, more money. And what happens is on the outside, we look super successful. And each and every year, because we experience those options, our thermostat and our standard grows, which can be a good thing in many situations, but sometimes it's not so good because now maybe selling 1,000 homes a year is your standard, right? And you don't want to go back from that and it consumes your life. And so I didn't realize until honestly my daughter moved to college that I was like, she missed out on so many things as a mom daughter, right? Now, just I'll fast forward to good news. We're closer than ever today, right? So she and I just transparently in the past couple years came out and just apologized to her for not being there to bake Christmas cookies with her and do all those things. And she understands and is mature enough to understand the sacrifices I made to break this cycle of where I was in my life and where she is now. So I love that and it's beautiful. And I was still stuck in this cycle because the more successful we become on the outside, our standards go increase and it's this up and down and there's no breakthrough to this level 4 because our outside looks amazing. But a lot of agents that I talk to have lost themselves. Internally, they're depressed. They could say yes to any options they want to, and their insides are depressed and not truly happy. And so that is where my passion zone is, and just this is why I do what I do. And so bringing people to level 4, which I want you to write best self. Level 4 is best self. This is about becoming a different version of yourself. And so instead of that external wheel that we talked about being on, and again, I think, on that wheel for about 12 years. My first 2 years in the business, I just stayed on that wheel of level 1 and 2, money and transactions, money and transactions. And then we get to money, transactions, and options. And what we do is we just recreate that same wheel by increasing our thermostat, increasing our options, increasing everything in our life more, 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 more. And so now it's like instead of having that empty feeling of like, what else is there? It's taking us to this level 4, which is our best self, which is becoming a different version of myself. And I was always a believer in Christ. And I believe that in the past 2 to 3 years, he's really spoken to me, Holy Spirit spoken to me to just be more obedient and follow his plan, right? And his calling for me. And what are my talents? What are the things that he's created in my life? And what is the journey he wants me to be on? And so for all of you, I would ask yourself too, that destination of your unreal life, who do you need to become? And so think of yourself as a mother, a daughter, a wife, a friend, to be the best leader for our agents. Who do I need to become to be a better leader? Who do I need to become a better mother or daughter? So this is all about character. So I just want you to write down character. And I want you to write down wisdom, integrity, humility, commitment, perseverance. All of these things is what builds us to be a better person. And so one of my great friends, Justin Ford, he presented this Live Unreal formula, and there's a few things that I took from his speech that I want to share with you, because I never thought about it in this way, and this piece changed everything for me. And it was all about developing character, but going through this as a process. Because a lot of times what we do is we'll set, and me personally, I will set like a health goal and I'll achieve it and then I'll have a setback. And I'll achieve some things and then I'll have a setback. Or um, we're doing really, really well, and then we get this crazy thing that happens to us. And we're like, why is this happening? What is going on? And Justin spent a lot of time here talking about we can set all these goals in this level 4 of our best self and be on a journey to achieve all of those. And our setbacks will slow us down. But what those setbacks mean is something significant. And I'm going to share all that with you in a moment. But what I want you to write down right now is 10 or 10 life areas. And I'm going to, if there's a chat, I'm going to just post them in the chat so that I make sure that you all get them all. Let me see here if I can do this. Okay. All right. Do you see those life areas? So when you're looking at your better self or your best self, the life areas are business, family and friends, marriage, health and appearance, spiritual, financial, emotional, fun, recreational, personal growth, and homework environment. And I'll repeat those again. And by the way, you could go on Google, go on the Googler and just Google life areas, and they might come up with 10 different ones, but they're all pretty much the same. And you're going to go through those and rate yourself on a 1 to 10. And some of you have seen like the life wheel where the wheel is out of balance and things like that. This level 4 of your best self, this is what it's really all about, is looking at your life areas. And what we found in this industry is that most people will rate the number 1, the business, at like a 9, right? But maybe their family is a 3, or their health is a 2, or their spiritual is non-existent, And so looking at all of the areas so that you can live an unreal life. Okay, so write those 10 things down. Does everyone see those in the chat? Okay, perfect. All right. And so we'll do a little bit of workshop in towards the end and give you some time to rate yourself on those. But this portion of it that was so profound to me that changed was that it's a process. And in each one of these areas, we might be achieving and then we see a setback and we're like, why is this happening? Why am I having a setback? And every time we have a setback, it's because it grows us. Every time we have a setback, it grows us. So it gives us more faith. It gives us more commitment. It gives us more discernment. And we have to trust the process because it is a process. It's not an end destination. So what I have found is the unreal life is really being in this phase number 4 for a long period of time, right? Because every setback that I have, it's pruning the things out of my life that maybe I don't need or not in alignment with me or where I am supposed to be going versus where I should be going, right? And looking at how can I learn from this? And so I am going to share one scripture that Justin shared that I just thought was amazing. It's James 1 verses 2 through 4. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let the steadfastness have its full effect, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. And so what I've learned in this phase 4 is that every time I have a setback, it's because it's teaching me to become who I need to become for that next destination. It's preparing me for that unreal life. Because if we were given that unreal life right out of the gate because we wrote it down and made a commitment, it could actually be devastating to us because we are not the person we need to be to receive that. Does that make sense? So this was so profound for me because I would be growing my sales and creating income. And I don't know if any of you have spent income just as fast as you make income, right? So my business slowed down, things slowed down, and I was starting to fall backwards. And I realized it was because I needed to be a better steward of my money. I needed to educate myself more about money. I had no parents or role models or anyone to teach me how to handle now the money that I've created or that God has actually created for me, but I didn't know how to handle it properly, right? So I'm going through that learning process. And so right now I'm simplifying. I have never been happier on my unreal life journey simplifying. We just sold we had a property in Puerto Rico in Palmas. We just sold that. And we're taking that money and we're improving the house we live in right now, and we're turning it into a group home for young men with autism. So, kind of using that towards a greater purpose. And so now, when I'm looking at marriage, health, fun, recreational, personal growth, spiritual, and I look at all these things and look at who I'm becoming and where I'm actually going, I'm so thankful and grateful that I still have the opportunities in front of me in real estate with my company, with my production, with my coaching, in order to fulfill all of those things versus the external things that I was after before. And so that moves us up to number 5, which is the unreal life. And when you work on those 10 things and you really understand your purpose and you get fulfillment out of your daily life, that's where I think the magic happens. And so that's my quick journey on the 5 rungs. But it's just about trusting the process. And I just want to leave you with once you are in your level 4, 5, which by the way, those are kind of blended together because you can live your unreal life for the last 30 years of your life, right? It just depends on what you're working on and what your goals are. Um, but leaving a legacy. So I look at each one of these areas and ask myself, how can I impact other people? How can I utilize the gifts that God has given me and the resources God is giving me to impact other people? And I believe we're all one decision away from having an unreal life. And it's really being able to stop, look inside ourselves, and look at who we need to become and start investing in ourselves and just honestly taking time to think, right? And just be alone and think and dig in spiritually and ask ourselves, where are we going on our unreal life? So I'm going to stop there because I've shared the 5 levels, and then we'll go kind of into a question and answer, and then we'll do a little short workshop, and then we'll close. So, any thoughts from anyone on the call as we kind of went through the 5 levels?
Yes. I have lots of, I
It's
have
a
lots of,
lot. I know I puked it all out in 35 minutes.
no, it's good. It's great. So I have a question. Well,
Yeah,
2 questions
sure.
actually, with clarifications.
Hmm.
On the level 3, which is where you're working, building so that you have more
Options.
options, right?
Mhm.
Um, what is the distinction between that and then the best self on level 4, where you're developing character? Like, is it
Yeah. So I would say the differentiating word you would use for level 3 would be external, and level 4 would be internal. So if you've ever looked at the different forms of motivation. You have external motivation, internal motivation. It's more along those lines of moving from wanting a boat, a house, a this, a that, to wanting to improve your health and your appearance. That's an internal thing.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, yeah. But I do believe that at points like the family and friends or the marriage, I think some of the external, like Ryan and I are going on a couples retreat in Cancun, Mexico. Well, that's kind of like vacation. That would be an options. Yes, but it's also a four. So I think some of them can be blended for sure.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
I'm guessing I'm not the only one that has things churning around.
Yeah.
Feel free to come off mute. You don't have to
Yeah,
put it in the
please.
chat.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. All right. Yeah, so one of the things I'd like you to do now is what we'll do is we'll take a couple minutes and maybe you'll come up with questions as we do this exercise. So there's only 3 questions. Number 1 is where am I in these 5 phases? Where am I amongst these 5 phases? Where do you feel that you might be stuck? Or what are you currently working on? So when you look at this and you were to audit yourself, are you stuck in level 1 and 2, which is the transactions and money? I mean, are we feeling a little empty? Are we feeling like we're not on purpose or we're not being fulfilled, right? Because if that's us each day, we know that there's something more. We have to tap into those other levels above. Okay, so where do you feel that you are? So we'll take a moment there. And by the way, newer in the business, you're definitely going to be in level 1 or 2 for a while because it's a climb, like we talked about. Okay. I can retype those phases. Oh, okay. Yep, someone's typing them in there for me. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Yeah, so yes, so level 1, I'll go ahead and do it. So 1 is money, 2 is transactions, and that's a business plan. 3 is options, or I call it freedom to say yes. To external, we'll put external things. And then 4 is internal, and that is your best self. And then 5 is unreal life. And by the way, 4 and 5 can be interchangeable as well. So sometimes you're in between these, right? Okay, there you go. All right, so question 2 is we'll take the 10 life areas and we'll have you rate yourself on a 1 to 10 and we'll go through them pretty slowly. So the first one is business. Where do you rate yourself on a 1 to 10 in business? Okay, number 2 is family and friends, or you could say relationships. Family and friends. Where would you rate yourself on a 1 to 10? Number 3 is marriage. Spouse, relationships, that type thing. Debbie, did you have a question?
Well, I've been single for a really long time, so marriage is kind of a word that I feel is an expectation, but so then, and I know this is a personal internal thing for me. It makes me feel less than
Yeah,
because I'm not married, and
right.
because there's
A goal for that. Yeah,
a seeming expectation of marriage, and
right.
so and I do realize that that's completely me. It's not necessarily anything anybody else is imposing upon me, but because I do want to be married. Um, So how would you recommend I view that particular component?
That's a great question. I would say view that one as being the person that you want to become that would be a good prospective wife for, right? That's what I would do if you had that as a goal. If you didn't, there are so many women that I in the Bible that were always single. And so I would just not, that doesn't always have to be your destination. So don't ever feel less than for something like that, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. And again, I copied these 10 areas from someone else. So, because we rip off and duplicate, that's what we do, right? That's a great question, Debbie. I appreciate you bringing that up. All right, number 4 is health and appearance. Rate yourself on a 1 to 10. Number 5 is spiritual. So rate yourself on a 1 to 10 spiritually. Number 6 is financial. And I would look at that as like stewardship, financial responsibility, discernment of where you spend money, um, emotional. One of the things I've done recently is I just got my certification with Dr. Abelson for emotional intelligence and DISC and all of that. And that is one thing that I just love is helping people increase emotionally with their awareness of how they process their own feelings and how they can recognize and process feelings of others. So that's emotional. I kind of look at that as like emotional intelligence and your own emotions. And that could also mean maybe like happiness, you know, that kind of thing. And then number 8 is fun and recreational. That's the one where I struggle, honestly. Like, I don't know why. I don't know. I'm like, well, what's fun and recreational? I'm trying gardening. I'm trying kayaking. I don't know. Like, what do I do with myself? Yeah.
Next weekend, I'm going to hike a glacier in Alaska,
Ooh, fun. That's
which
awesome.
seems more detrimental than recreational.
No, I
I
think that hits the health and appearance. I think that hits the fun and recreation and maybe some personal growth, depending on how you have to manage your mindset.
Well, I did have to question my girlfriends. There are two girlfriends I've grown up with since we were 5 years old. We're in our mid 50s, so I've known them for over 50 years. Girls trip to Alaska, where I'm from, and one of them said, "We're hiking a glacier," and I was like, "You do realize I'm going to be there, right? Why did you pick this?" I don't understand. Did you not consider that I was going to be there?
That's funny. Oh, that's fantastic. Number 9 is personal growth, and number 10 is home and work environment. And for that one, it's, making that ideal in alignment with you. And that could be the people you surround yourself with too. So just making sure you audit all of those things and rate yourself on a 1 to 10, because that's going to give you a key to where you need to focus maybe first, depending on which one you feel is most important to you. And then really just evaluate where you're spending your time. And I think that's the biggest one, to where I felt like my business was a 9. I mean, there's always room for improvement, right? But I was still spending 90% of my business time in my business. So it's like, why is that? Like, that's already a 9. Like, let's diversify a little bit, right? So I just think bringing yourself into the awareness of where you're at in those. Okay. And then the last thing I want you to do is just ask yourself, and here I'll repaste this question in there, is number 3, who do I need to become in preparation for my unreal life? Like, if you're not living your unreal life right now, who do you need to become? Where do you need to put in the work? Because we're going to have to take ourselves out. I mean, I had to take myself out of the business for a while. I mean, there were weeks where I was like, I didn't really do a whole lot this week. I did what my obligations were so that people didn't notice I was hiding. But at the same time, I was really kind of withdrawing myself and working on some of these other things of who I need to become. And I could say that I'm not at my final destination of my unreal life, of what God has in store for me and what my future has in store for me and the legacy I want to leave. But today I can safely say I'm happily married. My children are healthy. I'm doing things and I feel like I'm living my unreal life. I don't feel like it's a future destination. It's just this continuous journey, but I'm in all five of these rungs of this ladder. I'm not stuck in between level 3 and 4 for 12 years, right? So I think it's really just recognizing that we need to really work on ourselves and take the time to pull us out into where we're going and to leave a legacy. And so me, the future for me is that after we open this group home, I there's a small little lake about 8 minutes from this house, and my son will be living here. And then I would love to buy a lake home, and I'm creating a small like retreat. I think it'll look like a tiny house or something, kind of like right on the lake behind our house. And I'm going to build a retreat center for women in business who've lost themselves that need a 4-day retreat. And I'm going to coach them and help them reconnect with themselves, reconnect with Christ, and then re-find their purpose and move forward. And so that's what God is calling me to do. And I'm just super excited about it. So I don't know what any of that'll look like, but that's what I'm dreaming about. That's what I'm on track for. And I want my legacy to be a blessing. And I want you to write this down. Legacy, blessing or brokenness. I feel like if I stayed in level 1 and 2 and was just focused on the options for my children, I would have left some brokenness. And so the question is what legacy are you going to leave? And so once we've moved through these and we're living our unreal life and we move on to legacy, we could leave a legacy of brokenness or we could leave a legacy of a blessing. And so that's my hope and wish and dreams for all of you, is that you take the time to move through these rungs and then get to the point where you are planning on what are you going to leave for others? What are you going to do to impact others and help others in their life? So I'll close with that. I know when Rick shared his stories with us, he shared with us his hardships. And if you've all probably heard him speak before, um, and he would show us how God pruned him and pruned his life to leave a legacy and a blessing. And so he's definitely left a blessing for all of us. So I just wanted to say thanks for having me here. I'm just tickled. So
Well, thank you so much for being here, Jacqui. And if there's any questions that anyone has, you guys can just come off of mute and ask them. And
yes, please.
based on everything that you shared, there's a couple of things that stood or are
Yeah.
standing out, and that is just how easy it can be to be in levels 2 and 3 uh, on the hamster wheel, on the treadmill of life and business, and just going. And that to me, as I'm looking at it, that shift to 4 is really pausing and
Hmm.
creating a different level of awareness and being willing to look. And sometimes in my experience, that's the hardest thing to do, because then when you look, you actually see.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's like,
Right.
oh,
Oh,
I'm not sure what I feel about what's looking back. And if I don't look, then maybe it's just not there.
right.
It's not
Right.
true. It's still there. It's
It's
just a
easy to
matter.
ignore because you have all this other stuff that is keeping you occupied.
And
Right.
yeah, in my experience in life and business is there's always going to be things to keep us completely head down occupied. So much so that we never do look
Look.
until we decide to look. And so
Right.
I think it's a definitely and well and then you mentioning about that being your 2010 to 2022 journey,
Yeah.
and then like, okay, and now I'm going to do something different, which is
Hmm.
look. And so it's amazing how many options and different things open up, and how beautiful and more robust life becomes when we actually have the courage to stop the insanity of just
Yes.
the what we know how to do and keep doing, and actually take a look. because it opens up a different set of options. So I appreciate you being willing to share
Yeah.
transparently your journey and
Yeah.
yeah.
And I will say too that when you are in that best self level 4 type of thing, when you have different glasses on when everything comes at you, right? So when the crazy seller comes at you about the frickin' refrigerator and da 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 da, you see it differently because your eyes are focused on something else. If
Mm.
my eyes were still focused on just transactions or just this agent who left or agents come, agents go, deals fall through, deals this, there's a numbing part of that when you're really a top agent. It's like, okay, this is always going to happen. But there's also when you're relationship based, I used to get in a tizzy about every person that left or every deal that fell through. And now it's like my eyes are so fixed on a different path. It's not that I don't care, it just doesn't have the weight in my heart that it used to because I was only focused on transactions and money and some options. Transactions, money, and some options. And so when something goes wrong and there's a big snag, it's like a showstopper. Well, now it's like, well, everything is solvable or it's not. And I'm focused here because there's a different legacy I'm leaving and a different purpose for me than to resolve this stainless fridge argument, right? So it's interesting.
Bless and release the stainless fridge in the person's
That's
house.
right. 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 Exactly. Exactly. All
Uh,
right. Anybody else have any questions, comments, closing? Okay.
Nope, we got a thank you from Ela.
All
And
right.
she loved the exercise, said it was really revealing. So once again, this the recording will be up on our Empire Builders Pro site under the resources tab under Free Friday Coaching Call. You'll see that up by the end of the day today. Jacqui, thank you for your contribution and sharing what you've learned and sharing and giving so freely to our community
Absolutely.
and everyone that will see this on the replay. We appreciate you. And I'm here to return any kind of service or contribution for you, your community, and your organization at any point. I'm a text or a call away for that.
Thank you. All right. All
All
right.
right.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend.
Make it a great
Thank
day,
you.
everyone.